If you're thinking about moving to Raleigh, North Carolina, you're looking at the map and trying to piece it all together, well, I know how frustrating and confusing that can be. I moved here from Dallas some years ago, and I wish I had this video when I was looking at Raleigh as a place to move to, because there's a lot going on, and picking the wrong place to move to can be even worse than if you had just stayed put where you are. And I know that because when I first moved here, I chose wrong and I almost regretted moving to Raleigh. So I want to save you that heartbreak and trouble. We are going to be opening up the map and covering everything you need to know about all the different parts of Raleigh. You're going to walk away from this video a master, and most importantly, you're going to know which places are going to be the best fit for you and which places you should just cross off the list. Okay, now we are inside of Google Maps looking at Raleigh and the entire triangle as a whole. We're going to get a macro zoomed out picture before we go deep into each and every part that makes up the triangle. Now, if the term triangle is unfamiliar to you, that is what we call our metro, made up of Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. If you were to draw kind of a straight line between the three, it would look like a triangle, or if you're hungry, it would look like more of a pizza slice. But these three towns here are what make up kind of our metro, and it's home to 2.5 million people and counting, and we get people like you every day who are looking at moving here, so that number just keeps going up. Now, here at the heart of the triangle is something pretty important. First of all, we have the International Airport. This is the closest one within a few hours, so you're going to be using this when you're going anywhere on vacation. If you travel for work, you'll be using it a lot more. And if you're coming into town to check it out, before moving, which I highly recommend, this is where you're going to be flying in. Now, right next door, you'll see here is Research Triangle Park. Now, Research Triangle Park is the nation's largest research park. And that's pretty important because this is what attracts top paying employers. So we get a lot of big companies, Fortune 1000, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 in the tech space, in the pharma space, education. All these companies are coming in and they're offering high paying jobs to skilled labor. When we zoom back out and look at the universities here in the triangle, I mean, there's a lot of them. Many are on the small side, but we have not one, not two, but three tier 1 universities. That's Duke University, which, I mean, everyone knows Duke, it's very well known. We have University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, which is the nation's first public university in recorded history. And then we have down here, NC State University in downtown. So each of the three cities that makes up the triangle has a tier 1, meaning highly competitive, highly ranked university for that specific city. That means that the Research Triangle Park is not only getting top talent from people that are relocating from Seattle and California and some of these other like tech silicon type markets, but we're also getting top talent from the three tier 1 universities that surround the Research Triangle. The triangle is actually very highly educated, it's relatively high income compared to national averages, and there's so much job opportunity at the very center of it all. This will also explain, as we go throughout the different suburbs and cities throughout the triangle, why certain ones like, say, Cary or Mooresville are extremely popular, because they're as close as you can get to these top paying jobs and to the airport. So those dynamics will definitely come into play, and we'll see that as we continue throughout the video. But now let's zoom in a little bit into the heart of Raleigh. So first we have what's called the inner belt. And you're gonna wanna familiarize yourself with the terms inner belt and outer belt. Inner being this 40 into 440 loop that surrounds downtown. And if we zoom out a little bit here, this huge 540 loop, which, by the way, they are working very actively on completing it because it's not a complete circle, but it's very close to being one, and we'll talk more about that later in the video. That's what we call our outer belt. So people are going to locals will commonly refer to that as the inner belt and the outer belt, and they might say, I live inside the Beltline. What that means is they live basically near downtown. They live within this giant circle here. And you can't just summarize it as downtown. There's a lot going on here. There's a few different segments you need to know about as far as being inside the Beltline. Before I say that, mainly you just need to know that the type of people who live inside the Beltline are going to be college students, it's going to be retirees, or it's gonna be people who just love kind of that vibe, right? If you're coming from a bigger city, you might wanna try to recreate that feeling here in Raleigh. I will preface with the fact that downtown Raleigh, let me zoom in here, is nothing compared to Dallas or New York or some of these larger markets. I moved from Dallas myself with my wife several years ago. The downtown here is just, it's cute, it's quaint, it's walkable, but it's nothing compared to those cities. It's not even a remote resemblance. It's still super nice. It's definitely sometimes a disappointment to people who like that city life. And that might even be reason for you to, look elsewhere or look into other parts of the triangle. So there's really two sections to what we consider downtown. This section over here on the west side of this kind of main road that takes you through downtown, this is kind of the newer side. You're gonna see nicer residential apartment buildings and condos with like built-in amenities and even built-in grocery stores. Very nice. Lots of restaurants. This main strip right here off of Glenwood has the Raleigh Beer Garden. It has escape rooms and all sorts of restaurants, like the Hibernian is a place I love to go to pretty often with my wife. But there's all sorts of shopping and entertainment off of this strip and even down into here. I know the Pit Authentic Barbecue is pretty good. Some people love it, some people hate it. I'm a fan personally. And then you even have like this nice Nash Square here. It's a green space with trees and little walkways and stuff. So it gives you a good amount of like nature at the heart of the city, which is kind of cool. There's a lot going on in downtown, pretty views. And again, it's pretty walkable. So I've gone into Street View just to kind of show you what it would be like if you were like walking around. There's that Raleigh Beer Garden I talked about. There's always changes happening in downtown. So like right next door, that recently just got, bought out and they're gonna be tearing it down and building something new up. But we've got nice restaurants and bars happening in here, some hotels. Some of the older homes have been reused as like restaurants and, kind of random businesses. Some have been used as like escape rooms, for example. There's a good amount of like residential happening in here as well, but all sorts of grills and ice cream shops and Pilates, and this place gets really active at night. What's nice is like on the weekends parking is free, so it's actually pretty easy to get around. You might just have to drive a little bit to find a spot, but it's a very simple downtown. There's that Hibernian I was talking about. It's got rooftop kind of seating, and again at night it's really pretty. There's lights, there's a lot of people. Downtown is super fun. But it's not like other cities where it's just infinitely sprawling. Now, if we go to kind of the east side over here, which is noticeably different because you have to pass over kind of the main streets that take you to downtown, we see more like museums. This is where we're gonna see the state capitol here as well. But it does get like its own little square with, the same amount of nature and park benches and that kind of stuff. But then it's gonna get a little bit more limited on, what you can do. Like there's the convention center, but as far as like shopping and entertainment, there's a little bit. There's some sushi, some random restaurants here and there. There is a pretty cool food hall over in these parts as well. But it's going to be noticeably more spread out than it was on that west side over here. So I personally spend like 75% of my time, if I'm in downtown, over here. Now that's downtown in a nutshell. If we actually zoom out here though, that's like a small fraction of what makes up the inner Beltline. So there's a lot of different sections in here that are all distinctly different. Starting kind of on this southwest side, as you can see, a lot of green space has been preserved. Raleigh does an amazing job at keeping things green, keeping the trees. I absolutely love that, and a lot of people do too. So down in the southwest portion, you've got two lakes. You've got the larger Lake Johnson Park, which is gonna have like a swimming club. It's gonna have trails. You can go kayaking, fishing, you name it, really close to downtown. Moving further east, you have hotels and nice apartments and stuff, but surrounding Lake Raleigh. Lake Raleigh is smaller, but it's still, again, pretty nice, and you're right across from a golf course. Moving further, we have this giant blob here, which is in entirety a park. It has a bunch of different sections. It's called Dorothy Dix Park. But the reason people love it, it is a giant open green space with great views of downtown Raleigh. And kind of looking at those photos, You know, it's expansive, it's gorgeous. You know, you can go there for a nice picnic, go with the dog, go with the kids. During June timeframe, they have a bunch of sunflowers. That's one thing they're known for. There's a whole sunflower park, but they've got all sorts of cool things, from interesting statues of like trolls to the new Gibson Play Plaza that they literally just built over the past summer timeframe. So there's all sorts of cool new playgrounds and sculptures and waterfall features and just a bunch more green space. They're always working and adding to what makes up Dick's Park, but that is a huge attraction for literally all walks of life. I love going there with my wife. As we move further north, big family feature, one of the oldest amusement parks in the nation here at Pullen Park. So showing you a little bit of that. Pretty cool for how close to downtown it is and just knowing the history behind it. But it's an amusement park. I mean, you know what that is. They've got really cool things. It's gonna be very kid friendly. You know, if you're just going there as adults, you know, it'd be cute and quaint, but it would get kind of tired fast. But this is gonna be huge with families. And it is just gorgeous. Looking at these photos, there is really a lot to do there. Very, very, very popular. And that's all surrounding North Carolina State University, which we've already mentioned. You know, you do have a big mix, but mainly this section down here it's gonna be younger people who either go to the university, or it's gonna be people who work at the university and just wanna be really close to campus. This is still definitely within 5 minutes of downtown Raleigh. And as we're gonna talk about later in the video, there's a lot of entertainment stuff happening over here to the west. So if you live in kind of this southwest portion of the inner Beltline, you're sandwiched in between downtown and a bunch of entertainment. It's pretty cool. There's a lot going on, and everything is kind of walking distance is really the cool part. Now moving up to kind of this northwest section of the inner Beltline, this is definitely kind of the fancy, you know, bougie side of the inner Beltline. So you have really popular neighborhoods like Oberlin, 5 Points, Hayes Barton, and Budley. They're surrounding a country club. A lot of the real estate in here, although on the older side, still sells for $800K to, you know, several million plus. And even though it doesn't look like much, I mean, some of these homes look really cool, but like, it's a pretty standard house. And yet that house right there probably is about $800,000. And then you'll occasionally have some like random like modern looking houses that people have built, or teardowns that have happened. Some of the luxury teardowns that are happening are easily multi-million dollars. Like that one, that's a perfect example. So that's a pretty large house. That's probably 3,500 square feet, and it probably sold for at least $2 million. So that's kind of what's happening in these sections, is regardless of if it's old or if it's new, you know, you get large lots, and you're just, in general, you're paying a premium for being within the Beltline. That's just going to come at a cost, and people love it because they actually just are really close to everything, and that's really what they're willing to pay for, even if the house is older and even if, you know, they're paying more for the properties. What's really cool about this north section up here, sandwiched in between 401 and 70, which, by the way, 401 will take you up to Northeast Raleigh into Wake Forest and some of those, you know, northern east suburbs, and then 70 is going to take you to Northwest Raleigh, and that includes going straight to the airport and up to RTP for Research Triangle Park. So pretty important roads here too. And it also kind of separates this little section up in here. So we do have that golf course that I mentioned off the country club that feeds kind of these surrounding neighborhoods. And most of these neighborhoods in here are going to be very similar, I would say, to these over here. This specific section right here is going to feel different. It's going to be kind of a modern shopping center. So you have a giant Costco, which feeds basically all of Raleigh. You have a nice Trader Joe's. You have the Ritz, which is a live music venue that they've got going on here. They put all sorts of like concerts and stuff on. That's a pretty cool spot. And then there's all sorts of other restaurants. So for example, Umaya Raleigh, I love, probably my favorite place to eat in the Triangle. It's unlimited made-to-order sushi. I'm actually getting really hungry just thinking about that. But this whole segment is super nice. It's very, you know, central to kind of that North Raleigh part. And if you live anywhere within this area, you're gonna be going into here probably on a daily basis. Now, as we move further down, things are gonna get a lot more older and more historic. Over back by 5 Points, there is a lot of cool things going on. The Rialto, for example, is kind of a historic movie theater. I mean, it looks old, but it's actually really cool. They put on a lot of movies. A lot of the movies they put on are older movies to kind of match the vibe. But in addition to having the Rialto, this little strip right here has a lot of cool stuff. So they've got some real cool restaurants. They got nice bakeries. Hayes Barden Cafe and Dessertery, by the way, they make giant slices of pie. And when I mean giant, I mean they're like some of the biggest slices of pie you've ever seen, which is pretty cool. And then they got Pilates and coffee shops and all that kind of fun stuff. And a lot of these buildings were built, 100 years ago, which is really cool. Yeah, so as we start to get closer to downtown, but on this northeast side, that's where we see a lot of our historic neighborhoods. So a lot of the homes that were built in the upper 1800s, lower 1900s, they're gonna pop up in kind of Mordecai near the historic park, and in East Mordecai, they're gonna pop up in historic Oakwood. And you might have heard that one. Historic Oakwood is, well, it's probably one of the most popular historic districts here in downtown Raleigh. They've got some really cool, again, historically protected neighborhoods from the Victorian era, early 20th century homes. I mean, just look at that gate, for example. There's so much character in that, and that's a cemetery that's been there for way longer than anyone watching this video nor I have been alive. So lots of cool stuff going on in this area. Obviously, this is only going to appeal to people who are into historic homes, are okay with homes that are historically protected, meaning limited in what you can do to the house. But there are plenty of people who love that vibe, and they're okay with paying a lot of money for a really old house because it is cute and it is quaint and there's a lot of character, and I totally get that. That might not be me, but that might be you. Now, the last segment that I need to cover is kind of this outer rim of Southeast Inner Belt. And so what you'll find is that in terms of prices, this is your best bet for affordable prices within the Beltline. And I don't know if I should use the word affordable because you're paying a premium for being in the Beltline pretty much no matter what. But if a old house might cost you $800K in other parts, it might only cost you $400K or $500K in these parts. So significant cost savings for being over here. Now, the main reason for that being is that, well, you lose some of that uniformity. You also lose lot size. You lose out on kind of the home specs. Over on this section, there tends to be more townhomes and more duplexes. So we do see a little bit more of like a density going on over in especially this portion of the Inner Beltline. Again, there's some really good real estate in here. And you do have quick access to a WakeMed, which is one of the top 2 providers of healthcare here in the Triangle. And on top of that, you do have the Raleigh Country Club and this little guy right here, the Alamo Draft House. That is a dine-in movie theater with delicious food. You can go and like rent games or movies. Really, really cool place. I would highly recommend checking out as well. So you do have kind of some cool things going on over here, but it's just not as stacked as the West Side. You don't have the university. You don't have all these outdoor amenities. You don't have as much shopping or dining. So this is more the residential side and more the infill side. And that's kind of why you see the lower prices. You don't even get a lot of green space until you get down here and start to have the Raleigh YMCA, and you have a natural kind of river running through here. So that's the Inner Beltline. We still have so much more to cover. I hope you're still with me. Again, feel free to take breaks. Feel free to rewind if you feel like you missed something. By the way, if you are new here, my name is Benjamin Carver. I'm a local real estate agent helping people like you relocate to Raleigh every single day. I try to cover as much as I can in this video, but the best thing that you can do in your situation is give me a call at the number at the bottom of the screen, or you can click that link in the description to have a time to chat with me and our team. So I'd encourage you to reach out when you're ready, but for now, let's keep going. So we just hit the Inner Beltline. We are now gonna work our way up into North Raleigh. And I would define North Raleigh for these purposes as being essentially this block here, with this triangle over here being Northwest Raleigh, and kind of once you reach 401, that turns into Northeast Raleigh. So starting with, again, North Raleigh, there's a lot going on here. I'm gonna hit the main parts. The most important, back when we were down here by Costco, that kind of hub, it started to intertwine with North Raleigh at this section here. And this is North Hills. And you may or may not have heard of North Hills. You might not know what it is. North Hills, I say often on these videos, is the kind of newer, kind of more attractive version of downtown Raleigh. I love downtown Raleigh, but all the new development and a lot of the young people, they're coming into North Hills not only for just shopping and dining and, you know, going out with friends. A lot of them are coming and they're actually moving into North Hills into some of these luxury apartments they're building too. So we just made a video showing the top 5 kind of areas to live in North Raleigh, and this was the first one we hit. I'll link that down in the description. But there's kind of 2 sections to North Hills. This west side is more of the shopping part of North Hills. So if we zoom in here, we've got the movie theater, we've got a nice Target, we've got the hotel if you're coming in to stay for, like, you know, a short little weekend stay. We've got nice rooftop lounges and restaurants. I know Chick-fil-A is in here right there, Five Guys, Lululemon, so it's pretty luxury. There's some basics and then there's some kind of higher end stuff happening in here, and a lot of new stuff is popping up as of late. And that kind of extends further north up into this segment here. Is a little bit of the older side of the west side, but there's still a lot going on, from your Chipotle, your Panera Bread, Starbucks. So lots of shopping and restaurants in here, but they're a little bit more on kind of your basic side. Now we're on the east side, and this is more your residential side. So, you know, obviously there's residential and there's shopping and stuff on both sides, but we're gonna see a lot more apartments, a lot more condos, and a lot of these are luxury with nice amenities, not to mention built-in shopping. So like this one, for example, you can park your car in the parking garage, you know, there's EV chargers, and then you walk down and there is a grocery store at the bottom. It's a Harris Teeter. There it is right there. There you go, Harris Teeter at the bottom of your apartment. Really cool. You've got the Yard House, you've got let's see, you got Jubila Coffee, you've got all sorts of fun restaurants. So this is the kind of place where you really could live, eat, sleep, play. And as you're gonna see in a little bit here, you can even work here in North Hills. They've got a lot of cool stuff. If I pop my little guy in here, we're gonna get a really nice view, turn myself around past all these apartments. Look at that. We got a nice open green space at Midtown Park. If we keep going up here, yeah, they host all sorts of like events and little, you know, movies in the park. They got a nice restaurant here, Mexican food. If we keep going around, we look at not only the restaurants, but we also have all the just infinite new apartments that they've built. And they've got everything. They've got chiropractors, they've got dentists, they've got cafes, and it's all just really, really nice, really well planned. High density, so it is like feeling like you're in a downtown, even though it's not huge, just like downtown Raleigh. But I would dare say it's just so much nicer and more well planned than downtown Raleigh is. And so that's why a lot of people prefer it. I mean, it's upscale. It's very, very pleasant to walk around, to drive around, and it's very central to North Raleigh. It's not as hard to get around as it would be in downtown either. Now, if you go past kind of this section here to the very far east side of North Hills, that's when we start to see even, you know, newer development happening. So over here, this is all land right now, but they are building so many apartments and they're building corporate offices. So now a lot of, you know, banks and other businesses are coming into the area and offering employment at North Hills, so you can work where you live. And not everybody wants to be that close to work, but there is a big benefit. You might not even have to own a car. So there's a lot of stuff coming into the area. They're trying to make it even a micro hub for like tech startups and incubators. We have a Duke hospital. Duke is the other health provider. When I mentioned there were 2 top providers in the triangle, and this is of course through Duke University, which we already looked at. So they've got a whole campus in here, which means you really do have everything at your feet if you live in North Hills. And I'm not just talking about living in kind of the downtown of North Hills. We have a bunch of surrounding real estate that all kind of qualifies under that I live in North Hills. And it means you could literally walk or at least drive within a minute or two to everything that we just mentioned, not to mention right across the street is your Costco, your Trader Joe's, and all that kind of stuff, which just is almost like an expansion of North Hills. And really what people refer to as kind of this segment is Midtown. So if they ever say Midtown, if you hear that thrown out, that's exactly what they're talking about. Now, there is no North Hills neighborhood, but if you live in Northwood Acres or Ashley Park or Lakemont or Quail Hollow, you essentially live in North Hills. And what you're gonna find about North Hills is it's a little bit mixed, but for the most part, everything there is kind of on the older side. yet everything is seemingly very updated, good curb appeal, good lot size. The prices are still pretty steep when it comes to North Hills. So like this house, for example, it would still sell probably in the low fives, even if the inside is just not that great. And that always confuses people. And that confused me when I first moved here too. The moral of the story is people will pay for location. The location tends to be way more important to people than the house. So the reason people love North Hills is because it's nice, is because, you know, everybody's outside walking their dogs. It's because people care about their homes for the most part. It's because land is very valuable there because there's a limited amount of land. And if you own an older home, say a ranch like this one right here, you might just get an offer from a developer to tear it down. They might pay you $600K, which is more than the house is worth, and then they're gonna build a $3 million new construction house. And so I'll take you kind of throughout this neighborhood, and I will go find some of the new construction homes that they've been building. There's an example, and this is actually a smaller one, but this was, just like its neighbors, this was a basic ranch at one point that got bought out, bulldozed, and then they built this gorgeous new construction home. And now you've got a new construction home that's walking distance from pickleball courts and parks and trails and a lake and North Hills. So you literally have everything at your feet, including a brand new house. Again, it's gonna cost you, but that's what's happening in North Hills. And so, you know, plenty of people are okay with having an older home for $500,000-$600,000, especially if they find one like this where, yeah, it's older, but it's been nicely updated inside and out, and they know they're getting an established, desirable neighborhood that's going to have, you know, good appreciation. Their home is going to be worth more when they go to sell it, definitely, than when they bought it. And even though right now when you're driving, 1 out of every 15 or 20 is a brand new construction house, that number is increasing every single day. And so we really are seeing a huge, and I mean a huge amount of development happening in North Hills, just like this. This is arguably the most popular, most in-demand, hardest to get a house in part of our market when it comes to North Raleigh. But there's so many other good pockets to North Raleigh that offer way more affordability if you're not looking to be in a competitive premium price part of our market, which I totally understand. So we're gonna kind of work our way up here. First, to a little west over here, we have Shelley Lake Park. This is one of 2 main lakes on the north side of Raleigh. It's great because it has all sorts of trails. It's very lush, green, and a lot of these neighborhoods surrounding it, they literally can walk from their neighborhood, as you can see, to the lake. Pretty cool. There's also some, you know, nice apartments surrounding it as well. But the real estate's gonna be pretty old over here. We do see a lot of older townhomes that can be found in the 3s and in the 4s. And we're still seeing single family houses in the 4s and 5s, but we're starting to see prices, you know, get a little bit more manageable the further north we go. And that's a general rule. So as we move out of the 5s and 6s and up, we're moving into the 4s and 5s. As we get into here, we're seeing more townhomes. And then as we make our way up into here, we're even finding single family houses in the 3s. I'm talking a basic 3-bed, 2-bath ranch, but here in Six Forks, for example, you could have a very basic starter home. I'm just gonna drop myself into kind of the Six Forks area here. Just choose a random circle. Yeah, perfect. So you'll see a lot of houses like this, very basic, maybe 1,200 to 1,500 square foot, but you can get it in the mid 300 range, or at least, you know, under 4, and it's still a nice neighborhood. It's still, you know, people still take care of their houses. It's still active, and you have access to a lot of the amenities that North Raleigh offers. So let's talk about that, because there's so many neighborhoods, I can't possibly break all of them down. But the main hubs that you need to know in North Raleigh are gonna be Six Forks, which we just dropped into one of those neighborhoods. And Six Forks is home to a bunch of shopping, dining, and businesses. We'll break down that more in a second. Then we have the country club over here at Northridge Estates. That's a huge section that rivals North Hills in terms of popularity, and that's your best chance of finding a luxury, newer construction to new construction single family house. This is where some of the most expensive real estate in our market exists. We'll be touching on that soon as well. And then as you get into kind of, you know, close to the northeast side, this section over here, there's going to be a lot of older neighborhoods. Sometimes they're not in as good of shape, and there's a lot of like flippers happening, coming into this market, buying those older properties that need work and fixing them up and then reselling them. We're seeing a lot of that, but your best bet for getting a home kind of on that really low price point is going to be over on this section here. Now, starting with Six Forks. So Six Forks is pretty cool. If we look at the north side of Six Forks, you've got a lot going on. For example, we've got a Whole Foods. That's a good sign. We've got Chick-fil-A, Home Depot. We've got a drive-in movie theater and just a normal movie theater here at the Triangle Cinemas, which is pretty cool. We got all sorts of stuff from your Target to your Hobby Lobby, banks, Rodino's Rooftop, great pizza. We've got other grocery stores, other thrift stores. I mean, it's a pretty big shopping area, very expansive. And when I lived in North Raleigh, I was going here pretty much every other day. So there's a lot of good stuff going on here in Six Forks, and all this surrounding real estate down here is similar to what we just looked at on Street View. You can find, basic 3.2s in the 3s, or you can find some larger homes in the 4s. Relatively reasonable prices for our market. Kind of this top portion here, we do have the Bailiwick Road Park. It's home to Bailiwick Elementary School, which is a pretty good elementary school here in the Triangle. And the surrounding real estate in Steeplechase, Traymore Manor, Wentworth Park, and especially up in these sections where it turns green. It's green because there's a lot of land, a lot of trees, and you're more likely to own acreage. So if we look at these lots, for example, some of them are really large. This guy's got a lot of space backing up against a nice creek. If we go up here, this house is on more than an acre for sure, which is pretty hard to do in North Raleigh. And some of these are even basically backing up against this huge park. It has a nice dog park. It's got a nice pond. It's got trails. And so the real estate up here is going to be definitely your premium pricing. You're going to find homes in the 6s and 7s. Some of them are going to be more. I mean, just look at this front lawn. It's absolutely just gorgeous. And the longer you spend in here, the more you realize, this is definitely, premium neighborhoods. And so you do have homes 7s, 8s, even 9s back up in here that have access to the top schools. Maybe they send their kids to the local charter school. Now, over on kind of this northeast side of North Raleigh is that Northridge Estates that I was talking about. On the south side is another shopping area, home to one of my most favorite restaurants in the whole Triangle, the Metro Diner. Very unassuming. It's just a classic diner. It's got some great food. We go there for, breakfast, for dinner, basically. Really cool restaurant, but there's all sorts of stuff in here. I mean, you got TJ Maxx, Chick-fil-A, you've got thrift shopping, you've got Winston's Grill, which is a kind of a premium restaurant here in the Triangle, pretty popular. And as you can see, just so much stuff going on from shopping and groceries and whatnot. So that's all already pretty cool, and there's plenty of surrounding neighborhoods in here, mainly townhomes and condos that have quick access to that. But the big draw, of course, over here is going to be your Northridge Country Club. And it is, it's absolutely gorgeous to drive through. Highly recommend it, even if it's just window shopping. But look at this, they've still got some lots that they're tearing down. And most of these aren't teardowns, they're actually land that's still being developed, which is really rare in North Raleigh. They're building pretty giant homes, pretty nice homes happening in here. Luxury new construction, like that one right there. There is some resale as well, as you can see, but even the resale homes are definitely what was the premium homes back when they were built. And yes, some of these are being torn down, but most of these are in such good shape that there's just no reason to tear them down yet. Very, very nice. It is the kind of neighborhood where you are keeping up with the Joneses, but you're likely to get a large lot. If you golf all the time, you have pretty much immediate access to golfing, and who doesn't love to drive by not only a golf course but also luxury new construction, when they're going to their home. So I would say the curb appeal over here is even better than when you're driving through North Hills. One thing I've learned from making these videos, based on the comments that you guys give, is most people don't actually like the idea of living on a golf course because of, a number of reasons. And obviously it's expensive, but even being near something like this, especially if you are into golfing, is just really, really cool. And you can't deny that there's a lot of landscaping and just a lot of pretty nature happening when you are near a golf course community. And I mean, that's something that I've always really loved. Like, I would love to just go on a daily morning walk around this community with my dog. Okay, the last section we have of North Raleigh, we are just south of the North Ridge Estates. And this is, again, as we get really close to 401, which leads up into the northeast side of Raleigh and into Wake Forest. There's some key neighborhoods in here, and there's also some key, kind of shopping areas that we need to talk about. I mentioned that there were a lot of flippers coming in and renovating older properties. So kind of this section here, just past North Hills, we do have a little bit of shopping. We have a Walmart, Panda, Red Lobster, a bunch of random stuff off of Wake Forest Road, which is a pretty main road that runs through most of North Raleigh. That's also going to lead you right down to that Costco. So if we go just past that shopping development, we're going to have Brentwood Estates. Now, Brentwood is home to, a lot of older properties, and a lot of them are being flipped. There's so much new construction and so much construction happening in Brentwood Estates and the surrounding real estate. It's pretty crazy. You do have some, luxury apartments and some random businesses kind of in this area here. Little shopping hubs off to the right. Not a lot going on, to be honest. There is one nice neighborhood in here that's right off of a lake with pretty views. But it's a very mixed bag in here. Again, all older properties, most of them are being flipped, not rebuilt, which is something, important to note. And what's happening in Brentwood is happening to some extent in a lot of these neighborhoods here. They are just as old as the rest of North Raleigh, but a lot of these neighborhoods did struggle with not being kept up with, and now that's being, drastically changed. It's going to happen over time, right? But if you want an older property that's been renovated for a good price, say you want it in the upper 3s or lower 4s, then places like Brentwood or Greencastle, that's going to be a really good chance at that happening. And what's cool is you do have a lot of shopping nearby still and quick access to, again, 401. So if you live over here, you can pop down into downtown Raleigh really, really quickly, and it's still easy to get over into North Hills and into Midtown over here. But looking at this shopping development up here, a lot of stuff going on. Home Depot, Lowe's is there, Sam's Club, Chick-fil-A. It's a whole thing. I'm not going to list everything here, but there's a lot going on in here. And as you can see visually, it is one of the larger shopping hubs on the north side, if not the largest, except for this guy right here, which I would classify as Northeast Raleigh. Now, before we get to that, let's go over the northwest section of Raleigh. This is a super interesting one. And if you're enjoying the video so far, obviously a lot of work and effort goes into making these videos for you. All I ask is that you leave a like on the video, and if you have specific questions or there's certain things you like or dislike about it, let me know down in the comments so we can address that on future videos. Thank you for doing that. Now, Northwest Raleigh is very, very popular. It's one of the top relocation parts of our market, and it's not that different from North Raleigh. And North Raleigh is also very popular with relocators. But one thing I hear consistently about Northwest Raleigh is the schools are really, really good. And there's other benefits to living here. For example, it doesn't take long to see that you are right by the international airport. I mean, you could be within 5 minutes of the airport if you want to over on this side. You're also a lot closer to the Research Triangle Park, depending on where you are in Northwest Raleigh. So that could be really important for you too. Now, there's also this giant green space below the airport that you're right across from if you're in Northwest Raleigh. If you're wondering what that is, it's all William B. Umstead State Park. We have a gigantic state park with a beautiful lake. There's several lakes actually, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles of trails, and I don't even know how many acres, but it's massive. I love going there as much as I can when the weather's good, and if you're on this northwest side, I mean, you're basically backing up against it. Some of these neighborhoods are literally backing up against it, and we're gonna talk about in a little bit why they're so expensive. But if we're looking at the core triangle here, there's a few hubs that we need to look at. So let's start on this very south side, and this is just below that triangle actually, and this is going to be Crabtree Valley. This is home to one of the largest and probably most popular malls here in the triangle. Yeah, I know, malls just got bought out by some investors out of California, and they're pouring a bunch, and I mean a bunch of money into this mall to actually renovate it and make it just absolutely brand new inside and out. I've seen some of the mock-ups of what they're gonna do to this mall, and it just looks absolutely crazy. But it's a nice mall. You know, it was one of the first few places I went to when I was checking this place out, you know, seeing if I wanted to move here. And it doesn't look like much from street view, but it's actually, you know, it's 2 stories tall. Once you get inside, there's a lot of nice restaurants, from your Cheesecake Factory, PF Chang's, but it's actually deceptively large. And as you can see from kind of this street view, it's very wide. So there's actually a lot of businesses, some new buildings being built in here, Barnes and Noble, everything you'd expect from kind of a mall or a shopping center. And honestly, they're always building new things and adding new additions and restaurants. So that's all happening kind of over here. But if we hop across Glenwood Avenue here, which is that same road, by the way, that takes you into downtown Raleigh, and that same road that's going to take you all the way to the airport. So if we hop back on to the other side of Glenwood, you're going to notice that there's the Marriott, there's the Candlewood Suites. Down here, you got your DoubleTree and a bunch more hotels. So what's really cool about this area is it's a little more transient, right? So it's a great area for, like, you know, going in and just doing some shopping or having some fun with friends, but it's also a great area for people who are flying in and they need a hotel and they want to be, you know, affordably priced, and they also want to be able to walk across the street and have access to all those amenities. So that's what we did. We stayed at the Marriott, we crossed the street, we had dinner, walked around, and then we were also super central to the rest of North Raleigh so we could see as much as possible. Now, one thing you need to know about Crabtree, this little line right here, it is horrible. It doesn't look like much, but that is one of the worst kind of traffic jams that we get, and not even during rush hour necessarily. We get traffic there all the time. So if you have to commute from, like, say here into downtown often, this might hurt. This might really suck for you. If you never have to do that, then you don't have to worry about it. But I remember living, you know, over here in North Raleigh and needing to get down to 440 or down into downtown all the time for my job, my line of work, and having to sit 10-15 minutes just on this little stretch when it should have took 15 minutes to get downtown. So, you know, there's not much they can do to widen the lanes either. So this is continuing to be kind of an issue, but it's still a really cool area. Moving on, as we go kind of further north here, lots of similar to North Raleigh, lots of older neighborhoods built in mainly the 80s, 90s, some built in the 70s, a few in the 2000s, but kind of more in that 80s, 90s range are popping up in here. You're gonna see, I mean, I'll take you into one of them. Let's take you into Brookhaven, for example. Pretty basic houses happening in here. A lot of them, again, I mean, they're older floor plans, but, you know, they tend to be in pretty good shape. A lot of them have been renovated. Some of them haven't. This is a very typical North Raleigh neighborhood. You might want to start a home. You might be okay with kind of an outdated older home for a cheaper price, or you might need something larger. This is going to be one of those neighborhoods that for the most part is more your basic home, but like this one right here, I mean, they've got 2,500 square foot homes. You might be okay with like a starter home or a basic home, or you might need a larger 2-story home with 2,500 square feet or 3,000 square feet. So this is very typical for North Raleigh. You know, if we were to go into Street View into a bunch of different neighborhoods, that's exactly what you would be seeing more or less. And right next door from Brookhaven, as you can see, is another shopping development. And even though it's mostly concentrated right here, honestly, Glenwood Avenue, it's a huge connector. It's got stuff all along it. So if you're driving from Crabtree Valley up to the airport, you're gonna see stuff almost the whole way. Again, the highest concentration, yes, is going to be in here. You got all sorts of restaurants, Walmart, Chick-fil-A, Dick's Sporting Goods, Panera Bread's in here, First Watch, which is a really cool breakfast joint here in the Triangle. All very accessible if you're on the Northwest Raleigh side. Now, I would say the general feeling when you're driving on Glenwood is, hey, it's got a lot of basic stuff, pretty cool, but there's not a lot of like upscale stuff. So if you want like upscale shopping dining, you want it to be really nice, that's when North Hills comes into play. Or Midtown, or, you know, heading into downtown. But this is more of your basics. This has your basics, right? And then there's some local businesses and whatnot. As you get further along Glenwood, you're not gonna see near as much, and mainly what you're seeing on this strip is, yeah, like your CarMax, random Bojangles. You're gonna see, you know, ski centers and furniture markets and more furniture, and you're gonna see dealerships, lots of dealerships off of here. You do have the entrance into William B. Umstead. There's multiple entrances, some on the backside, but that's kind of the main one that we use normally to drive into here. So that's pretty important. But yeah, not a lot going on most of Glenwood. The only real thing of importance before you get up to the entrance to the airport, outside of all these dealerships, is the Angus barn here. As you can see, it's got a huge pond that they own. The Angus barn is one of the oldest and most, I mean, just look at that photo. One of the oldest and most desirable restaurants in the market. You will hear some people say, and I'm sure somebody's gonna comment saying, the Angus barn is overrated, I hate it. I loved it. I took my wife there for an anniversary. It was so nice. Fine dining, great food, great service. Yeah, it's expensive, but it's about the experience. It's a really, really cool place. I've been told to ask for the cigar lounge. You don't actually smoke cigars there anymore, but apparently it's a really cool room. All sorts of unique rooms, great food. They dress up great for Christmas and do lights and fires. And I mean, you can see from the photos, this is a really cool place and a lot of history here for us. Outside of that, you're mainly just turning into the airport here and flying in or flying out. Now back to the macro view here. I do want to talk about these neighborhoods down here, but first let's point out the important ones for the rest of this section here. So first of all, we have Leesville Road, and that is like the main road that's running through the very heart of Northwest Raleigh. And a lot of these neighborhoods in here is what's going to make up Leesville ISD, and that is one of the most popular school districts here in the Triangle. You'll find that the Leesville Community Park, the Leesville Elementary, if we zoom in here, the middle and the high school and the stadium, everything is kind of right here, very central, right? And so a lot of the surrounding neighborhoods are very, very popular because they get you into Leesville schools. That is really what drives it. If we go into a random, neighborhood, let's say Springdale Estates, for example, which we've toured here on the channel, this is actually a pretty nice one where homes have acre lots. It's surrounding a nice pond. So this might not be the right fit for everybody. You can't even see the houses because of all the trees. So it's a very established neighborhood, which a lot of people love that feeling that they get there. It's actually a really big lake kind of at the heart of this neighborhood. And so a lot of these houses have gorgeous views and quick access. And they're right across the street from this high school, which is pretty cool as well. So that's a very popular neighborhood, but there's so many neighborhoods within here that, get you a house in the 5s or 6s, and then you have access to the great schools. This is a perfect example. We are in Wingate. So these are, pretty standard, houses that were built in the 90s and early 2000s. They look nice. They're not gonna be like the most updated new construction, and some of them a little bit more entry level than others, but you can find a large home in here. Some of these are, over 3,000 square feet, so they're good for families with lots of kids, and then you get in the good school district. And so you'll find that when houses go for sale in these neighborhoods surrounding Leesville, they don't stay on market very long, and they can still be very competitive even if you're, in a weird time of year. So that's the case for Springdale Estates, Ashworth Estates, Cornerstone Park, a lot of these neighborhoods surrounding Leesville. Now looking at kind of this right portion of Northwest Raleigh, first I want to point out Lakeland Park. It's one of the 2 lakes that I mentioned here in North Raleigh. As you can see from the photos, it's gorgeous. I used to live very close to it, and I would walk there and I would just, walk around, look at the turtles, look at the wildlife, enjoy the views. Absolutely gorgeous. As you can see, there's a lot of apartments surrounding it too. Some of them are very nice, some of them are on the older side, but that would be a great area to rent an apartment and kind of test out North Raleigh before making a purchase, which is something that we, encourage people to do, especially if they're not 100% certain about making the move. On this east side, we have more established neighborhoods. Some of these are like new construction condos and townhomes happening in here. But if we go just further north, Stonehenge is one of the more popular neighborhoods in all of North and Northwest Raleigh. If we drop a marker in here, you're gonna see large lots. Even though they're not insanely impressive homes, they just get so much land. It's very established, and people will absolutely fight to be in these neighborhoods. There's also a new side to Stonehenge. If I drop you right in here off of Wilderness, you're gonna actually see the transition from older home into brand new construction. See, it just showed you it used to be just land. So, within the past 5 years or so, they started building these gigantic, some of these are like 4,000 square foot, new construction homes, 3-car garages, I mean, they're close together. They don't have a lot of land, but they're still just absolutely gorgeous. And one thing you'll learn about North Raleigh pretty quickly is new construction is rare. So you're going to see high price points when they are built. And this is one of the newer communities throughout all of North Raleigh, and that's why they're able to get those prices. And so not only do you get access to the really nice schools, but you got nice trails, pond, and just a really great community surrounded by other nice established communities, even if they're on the older side. And Stonehenge, as you can see, is huge. So that's the new section, but I mean, it is a massive neighborhood. In fact, you've got not one, but like 2 different shopping centers that are part of Stonehenge. This is kind of the older side here. It's got a few restaurants, you know, some bagels, Harris Teeter, kind of random stuff. But if we go north up the road, we just got a brand new Trader Joe's. That was put in just months ago, which was a huge win for North Raleigh. We've got Briggs Great Beginnings, which is one of the top breakfast restaurants here in the Triangle. We got coffees, and we've got, you know, other restaurants and dental offices and Harris Teeter, you name it. We got a lot of cool stuff in here. And if you take Strickland Road, which is one of the main horizontal roads that runs throughout the North Raleigh, not only would that take you all the way pretty much over towards the airport and everything else, but if you go to the right, it takes you back towards Six Forks, which we already looked at. So pretty great location. Stonehenge is maybe my #1 pick for North Raleigh, and I actually bought my first home just south of it here in Hampton Oaks. So we had immediate access to everything that Stonehenge offered, but we got our house for, you know, upper 3s, which was just a huge win at the time. Now, if we go back to kind of that main road, Leesville here, but I just want to point out this last little bucket here. So on the east side, you're going to have the Strickland Road Neighborhood Park. I'm just pointing it out because we have so many nice parks throughout North Raleigh. This is no exception. So Strickland Road is that main road that we just mentioned. And if you're driving on it and you pull off into the park, you're gonna have access to just gorgeous nature. It's very family friendly. Over on this side here though, not only do we have the Pine Hollow Middle School, which is pretty popular for North Raleigh, but we have a nice little shopping center yet again with a Publix. So if you're into Publix or Whole Foods, you've got both of those within very quick access if you're in Northwest Raleigh, in addition to some other random restaurants, and you know, your Dunkin' Donuts, your Starbucks, that kind of stuff. Okay, now we can cover this section down here, which is, I would call that Northwest Raleigh, but it just doesn't really fit inside of that nice little chunk there. So first of all these neighborhoods off William B. Umstead. Let's talk about those. So they definitely get premium pricing. Mainly that's because a lot of them have nice lot sizes and because they're backing up against this gorgeous green area here, which is William B. Umstead. That's the main thing you need to know. Some of these neighborhoods are really nice. They're backing up against like little lakes or ponds. Some of them have newer construction, which is also going to make them very desirable. If you're ever looking for a beautiful drive, you just want to kill some time, drive on Ebenezer Church Road. It rides right along Umstead State Park. Super gorgeous, and then you'll start to understand why a lot of those single family houses are, you know, charging what they're charging, which might be close to $1 million plus. And that leads us back to Crabtree Valley for this kind of south portion here. So behind Crabtree, you're mainly gonna have, you know, some random restaurants and office buildings, corporate offices, that kind of stuff. And then it's gonna get a little bit mixed, and not in a bad way necessarily. So you have parks here and there, like Laurel Hills Parks is very popular. Over here, Glen Eden is a great place for going and playing tennis and going on, you know, trails and that kind of stuff. This road here is Edwards Mill, and that's going to bring you down into this entertainment district, which we're gonna be covering in a little bit here. So that's the main road that's gonna take you throughout this whole segment here. And so, you know, on some sides, you'll see brand new townhomes. Other sides, you'll see older resale, and then you'll see some random new construction. Taking you into street view, you can see there's, you know, some corporate buildings where people might work. You have random restaurants and like shopping centers, little old Raleigh village in here. And a lot of this actually feels really spread out. You might see one building and then a bunch of trees. We keep going, one building, a bunch of trees. But if you were to just pull off, then all of a sudden there's some random houses. We keep going, we got more buildings, more corporate offices, and that's as we're starting to get into kind of that entertainment district on the south side down here. But if we're on the north side of Edward Mills, it's much more residential. There's still, you know, a lot of of, you know, buildings and random stuff, but you're starting to see more neighborhoods that you can turn off into. Like, for example, this is a new construction community in here. If we keep going, there's gonna be older resale. It really is a good mix. And again, it's in a good way. Everything seems very uniform and planned, but you've got corporate office buildings and, you know, apartments, and then you've got single family. So there's really a lot going on in this section, and depending on if you're here or over here, it might look very, very different. But it's a really cool area. It does start to really bleed on the south side into the entertainment hub, which we'll be covering later in the video. But now we have covered Northwest Raleigh, we've covered North Raleigh, we've covered inside the Beltline. It is time to move on into the northeast side of Raleigh. By the way, if you haven't yet, do download our 2026 Raleigh relocation guide. I've added that as a pinned comment down below. That is our gift to you. It's going to give you extra tips and information if you're serious about making a move here. It's going to teach you a lot about what it's like to live here, what it's like to move here, everything in between. So again, our gift to you. Make sure you click the link and download that and check that out after this video. All right, moving on to Northeast Raleigh. Let's start with this giant blob here. We mentioned it earlier. It's one of the largest shopping developments in the Triangle. This is the Triangle Town Center, home to the Triangle Town Mall. Now, the mall just makes up a small portion of what's actually happening here. So as you can see, I mean, it's not a crazy mall. There's honestly more parking than there is buildings. They do have some, you know, stuff going on in there. Personally, haven't spent a bunch of time there. Again, I know malls aren't as popular as they used to, but it's the surrounding area that's pretty important. So of course you have your Walmart, your Target, World Market, which is pretty cool. I know my wife loves going here because she'll go to Ross and then hit Five Below and then Marshall's and then Old Navy, and she'll stop at World Market, then she'll want to grab sushi, and it's a pretty cool place. I mean, if we drop in, they've got a nice little pond going on over here, which is fun to sit at and kind of eat your food. But they've got a lot of stuff in here: shopping, dining. They've even got a Navy Federal Credit Union, all sorts of stuff, you know, in this giant shopping area here. And this is just, again, one little part of this giant blob. So, you know, you mainly got your Walmart over here, some random businesses. Past the mall, you have some more stores like your Best Buy, your Hobby Lobby, McDonald's, random restaurants. As we kind of scroll downward, then it gets a little more random. You have random dealerships, you know, some restaurants like McAllister's. But it's pretty expansive, all the different things that you could hit up in here. I know this section here is pretty cool with your Dick's and your Nordstrom rack and that kind of stuff. And it even expands onto the west side here a little bit. So you got Burlington, you've got, you know, LA Fitness and Faux, you got Sweet Frog. I go to that Panera Bread and that Aldi's all the time now that I live in Wake Forest. Now, we still have to cover this northern section past 540. I am going to go ahead and cover this section of Northeast Raleigh now because it is very similar to the rest of what we're going to cover. I don't feel like it's super, super distinct like the difference we see between down here and up here. So with that being said, we have some pretty cool neighborhoods over on this very far northeast side before we get into Wake Forest and Rollsville. And if I were to type in the city limits of Raleigh, you can kind of see where those lines are. So Raleigh actually goes pretty far north, up near Wake Forest, so we get to cover all of this. And then really it's just this lower section that's part of Raleigh as well. Most of this section right here falls under a master plan community. It's one of the top in the Triangle. It's called Falls. It gets its name from this giant blob, which is Falls Lake. It's one of the top natural lakes here in the Triangle. I mean, it's massive, as you can see. Very popular for all things, you know, outdoors, including, you know, boating, fishing, hiking, camping, you name it. It's also part of the Mountains to Sea Trail, which runs all the way from the mountains over on the west side of the state, all the way up into kind of the northeast side where we hit the ocean. Pretty cool. But if I zoom back in here, Falls is a master plan community, and there's even more as we zoom in here. There's some townhome communities, some condos, and a lot of single family. And let's just take Bedford at Falls River, for example, because I absolutely love that neighborhood. As you can see, it's gorgeous. They've got ponds, they've got gorgeous mature trees that you drive under, which is really cool. And they've got just some gorgeous real estate. A lot of it, even though it's on the newer side, you know, 2000s or 90s, they're gorgeous, they're updated, and they have a little bit of like an older colonial type vibe going on. Some of them are very traditional. And then occasionally you get one that looks, you know, pretty pretty new, but like there's an HOA there, so they do have to meet certain architectural guidelines. So you can't just have like tear downs with modern, like ultra modern new constructions. I mean, just look at the trees, the colors, the houses. You know, if you've watched Gilmore Girls, it kind of gives you Gilmore Girl vibes when you're driving through there. I hope it's a safe place for me to say that. But I love Bedford Falls. It's one of the top places in the Triangle for me personally. And there's a lot going on. At the south side of Falls, you have even more shopping. Primarily, you have your Sprouts, which is pretty cool. City Barbecue is pretty good. But you also have, you know, Falls River Cafe, which is pretty popular. You have the Wake Med North Hospital. Again, Wake Med's top hospital chain here. And a bunch of other restaurants, shopping and stuff. And this whole section here is actually like pretty new and pretty nice. If I drop my guy in here, you're gonna see that there's a lot. Whoa, that zoomed in a lot, but there's a lot going on from the Harris Teeter. Just look how cute it is. It's very, very cute. I actually really love going here, even just to drop off my mail. There's just a lot going on kind of in this hub, and you have really quick access to that if you live up in Falls River. There are some neighborhoods kind of right below it too, that have that proximity to Northridge Estates, but they don't have the prices. So you might find a home in the 4s and 5s in here, and they're gonna be pretty similar to what you would see kind of in, you know, North Raleigh over in like Six Forks, for example. You do have a lot of green spaces in Northeast Raleigh, which is really nice. And that's one trend we're gonna see on kind of this very far north side of Raleigh is there is still some land. It's expensive, but there's land. So you have the Green Hills County Park, lots of trails, lots of green spaces, pretty cool. And then you have the nature preserve, one of many. There's so many nature preserves here in Raleigh, which is just so cool to me personally. I just love the outdoors. So you get the picture, a lot of trees, a lot of nature happening in here. Giant river running up along the side of Bedford at Falls, which is of course fed from Falls Lake. And then if you're in these neighborhoods, you have immediate access to the lake. So you have access to just look at those photos, gorgeous dam. You can hop over into kind of the recreational side over here, right next door. And you can, you know, go for a swim, go for a picnic, go boating, you name it. And kind of the last Raleigh neighborhood that takes you as far north as possible on the map, just north of Falls, is gonna be Wakefield. Again, top neighborhood here in Raleigh. A lot of people assume it's in Wake Forest, but it's not, just the way the property lines are. So Wakefield is very similar to Falls. It's home to Wakefield High School, which is a top rated, you know, school here in the Triangle. You have, you know, a lot of shopping and whatnot that's right by you. But it's very, very similar. It's just a step up in price. If I drop my guy in here, you're gonna see that these are more your estates homes, so they have really large lots. They tend to be larger houses. A lot of these are brick, which is an indicator of kind of a luxury home in our market, when most homes tend to be vinyl. If you want my opinion, they're a little bit cookie cutter, but it's a very desirable neighborhood. Now, big dividing line here is going to be Capitol Boulevard. This is Highway 1, and that runs you all the way from this T that we mentioned earlier, where the 401 out of downtown, it either stays 401, which leads towards Rollsville, or you take Capitol 1, which is going to take you to the northeast side of Raleigh and into Wake Forest and so on. Now, Capitol Boulevard, there's going to be all sorts of random stuff off of it. It's how you get into a lot of these older neighborhoods, which are actually part of Wake Forest. All these, for example, are part of Wake Forest. Down here, this is still going to be Raleigh, especially again on that west side. Now, clear dividing line here is going to be Highway 1. That is Capitol Boulevard. You're going to hear the word Capitol Boulevard thrown out. That is one of the main roads in Raleigh that you need to know. And that is where we tee off from that 401 that comes from downtown, and you're either going towards Wake Forest or you're going towards Rollsville. So you're gonna be using Highway 1, most likely if you are in these neighborhoods, to get quickly into downtown, to get over into the shopping hub that we just covered. If you cross Capitol 1 into kind of these neighborhoods down here, which really it's just these two that fall under Raleigh jurisdiction, everything north of that is going to be falling under either Wake Forest or Rollsville at that point. So these are mainly older neighborhoods. You know, it is a nice area where you have, you know, a big expansive soccer park that's always, you know, games are going on. You have the Horseshoe Farm Nature Preserve, which is gorgeous. It was donated to the city by this, you know, older couple who had a bunch of land and wanted to see it taken care of, which is really neat. And it's all connected to the Neuse River, so you have a great expansive greenway trail system coming out of a lot of these neighborhoods. These are older neighborhoods, no new construction, and they're more your starter homes. So you can find homes in the 3s and 4s, but they're not gonna have large lots. A lot of them are gonna be on the older side. If we move further past what is the continuation of 401, we're gonna have the Massey Preserve and Wake Crossroads. And this, these neighborhoods are pretty nice. If I pop my head in here, you're gonna see that, again, they're not like super fancy or super new homes, but they do get a little bit larger lot sizes. You can find a good home in the 4s, for example, and be really close to like the interstate and shopping, but not be backing up against it. And so a lot of people will end up in here. It doesn't have the same curb appeal and same charm as some of the other neighborhoods we looked at, and yet it's still pretty popular, especially for an affordability solution, while still getting a really good neighborhood, still being in Wake County schools. And some of these houses are actually really, really nice. So that's a great example of kind of what Northeast looks like. Technically, Raleigh expands even past that, once you talk about unincorporated Raleigh, but as you can see, it's a bunch of green space. There's not a lot out here. If you go any further than this, now you're in unincorporated Raleigh, and so you don't have Raleigh city taxes, which is nice, and you get a lot of land, so you can find cheaper new construction. If you want several acres, this is your best chance, is kind of going out into this green section here, where it's just expansive, and honestly, real estate's still very, very affordable. It's not going to be cookie cutter, which a lot of people like, but it's really random on what you're getting. We don't even have street view in a lot of these neighborhoods, but if I take you into here, for example, this is just a classic example. You'll be off some road, you'll see a house that's kind of sunk back, maybe it'll have a nice little pond. A lot of these just have a lot of land, a lot of privacy, private roads that, street view won't even be on. But for some people, that's the big appeal. And if you could go build a house in the 3s or in the 4s, new construction out here because land's cheaper. And that is going to be the case for a lot of what is considered Raleigh, which is, really all of this right here is considered unincorporated Raleigh, and it's all about the same. There's so many micro pockets, it gets so nuanced that I couldn't cover it all in this video, obviously. There is a lot happening out here. It'll come down to the specific street, specific pocket, specific plot of land, but there's so much opportunity out in here for people who are okay with being just a little bit outside of everything, especially being that far away from Research Triangle Park and the airport. That's a good 30 to 45 minutes depending on traffic, and for a lot of people, they're not willing to do that. But this is one of those last little pockets in Raleigh. Now we are on the east side of Raleigh. We are sandwiched in between Raleigh and Knightdale. And in general, you do get a pretty good price reduction being over here versus, say, being in a lot of these North Raleigh neighborhoods. So generally, the most expensive tends to be kind of Northwest, North Hills, and then it gets into North Raleigh, and then you get a price reduction into Northeast and a price reduction into East. That's generally the flow. Now, there is, of course, always going to be cheaper and more expensive neighborhoods. So I could find you neighborhoods on the East side that are more expensive than some of the neighborhoods on the North side. With the East side, there's some pretty popular neighborhoods, one being Headingham, for example. Headingham is a golf course community, and we made a video a long time ago. It was Raleigh's most affordable golf course community. And so if you go into Headingham, you've got access to a lot of amenities that would come with a golf course. Not only a golf course right here, but you would also have the athletic club and the pool and parks and all kind of stuff, right? And you're also pretty close to downtown, which is nice. You're a quick shot into Knightdale, which, as you can see, a little sneak peek, there's a lot of shopping and whatnot over in Knightdale, which is pretty cool too. If you're in Headingham, there's a lot of relatively large and relatively affordable houses. You have some nice starter homes where you can get a home in the 3s or in the 4s on a golf course, which is pretty cool. Not an opportunity that a lot of people have. And a lot of these houses are actually really nice. And when I walk them, they're taken care of. And again, you're literally backing up against a golf course. So if that's something that you're into and you want amenities and all that kind of stuff, Headingham's been a very popular community in, the east side of Raleigh for a long time. This kind of section here of East Raleigh, it's that same thing where it's like a lot of protected land, mainly because of the Neuse River. You have other, lakes going on in here. You have schools going on in here. You have, just random stuff that is taking up land on this east side. Most of it can't be developed. We may see a day where some of these people sell off some of their land and we get a little bit of development back in here. But between businesses and lakes and that kind of stuff, we really do lose a huge chunk of East Raleigh, which to a certain extent is okay. We don't necessarily need to tear down every tree and every pond to build more houses, although I know some people would love to do that. Now, looking at the other neighborhoods in East Raleigh, the main thing you're gonna notice is a lot of them don't have HOAs like you might find in some of the other parts of Raleigh that we've looked at so far. And for some people, a cheaper house with no HOA is something that they would love. You could pop into Winchester and look at some of the houses here. This house, for example, that would never pass it in HOA, but if you want a yellow house, you can have it here. And the best part is that yellow house doesn't cost near as much as it does in North Raleigh. And yet, going through here, it's a very gorgeous neighborhood, still got good lot sizes, you got good house sizes. And one thing that I've noticed, especially from locals, is that because neighborhoods like North Hills and other parts of Northwest Raleigh, they get so much attention and they're so desirable and people love the schools that, you know, the east side, it just gets written off a lot of times if I'm being transparent. And so I've actually had a lot of people who came in and said, hey, I'm only looking at North Raleigh, I don't want East Raleigh. And there's almost that, you know, misconception or generalization that people make. And what I found is a lot of those same clients, they did end up going to East Raleigh because it's better prices. There's some really cool neighborhoods there. Not every neighborhood's gonna work for you. And there are, of course, just like other parts. I mean, I could find new neighborhoods in North Raleigh that are run down and, you know, maybe not the best investment. And I can certainly find new neighborhoods like that over in East Raleigh too. And not every part of East Raleigh is gonna be, you know, super upscale and new. You're gonna find random auto shops off the road in some of these parts. If we start going down this road here, we'll find new construction townhomes on one end, and then, you know, we'll find older single family homes off the road on this end, kind of similar to what we saw in Edwards Mill. So it's gonna be mixed. And I would say in general, the best way to describe East Raleigh is it's a very large mixed bag. Every neighborhood's gonna be different. Every street even sometimes is going to be different. But the main thing is you get better prices. Now let's make our way into Southeast Raleigh. And this is where they are going to finish 540. For example, I have some clients down in Garner and they built a neighborhood kind of out in here, and 540 is gonna be going like right through there. So now instead of being kind of isolated, they actually get quick access to 540. They can go up into Nightdale. It's actually gonna be really convenient for them. But for others, it's actually gonna be running too close to the neighborhood. It might hurt the resale values, and that's something that we definitely need to be aware of. But one thing's for sure is it's definitely gonna change a lot when 540 gets completed. And that does have a huge impact, I would say, on Southeast, especially Southeast, unincorporated out in these parts for sure. But even if you're in here, right now you're backing up against a lot of land. That's soon gonna be interstate, which means a lot more development is gonna come into this section here. In terms of development right now, what we're seeing is we are seeing new construction come into Southeast Raleigh at affordable prices. So I'm seeing more and more people consider moving into here because they can get a new construction single family house in, you know, the fours, for example, which is pretty good for our market. And you have some other stuff going on in here. You have the Coastal Credit Union Music Park happening over here. You have, you know, some random hotels. You do have a golf club happening in Southeast Raleigh as well. But as you can tell, not a lot going on in terms of shopping hubs. You know, a little bit on the Garner side you could have access to here at the White Oak Crossing. That's a pretty neat area to go to that you have access to. But the main reason for being down in here is you get the same affordability that you have in East Raleigh, but you get more land and more new construction. And I think this area is just gonna change a lot as we see 540 be developed. So I'm very curious to see kind of what happens here over the next 5-10 years because of that development. But for right now, I mean, I think Southeast Raleigh is definitely a slept on area that a lot of people, it would actually be a really good fit for them, you know, if they want more of that land and stuff. Same problem though, you're really far from Durham, Chapel Hill, from RTP and the airport, so it's not going to be a great fit for everybody. But once you can quickly hop on 540 and ride that up, that might make a big difference too. Now moving on from Southeast Raleigh, that kind of blends into South Raleigh. Now there's kind of two parts of South Raleigh. There's the South Raleigh you can see right here with all the white. That's where most of the housing is going to be. And then you have unincorporated South Raleigh, which is mainly a lot of this in here. Actual South Raleigh. These neighborhoods, they're gonna be built ranging between 60s and 90s for the most part, and they're very similar to what we saw over here on the east side. So definitely mixed bag. Some of these neighborhoods are really nice. Like if you go over here into like Trailwood Hills, for example, nice single family homes. They're gonna be in the 3s and 4s, so really good prices. And the best part is, this is great for student housing. This is great, you know, if you got a kid in college, you know, I know a lot of people buy investment properties here and rent them out to working professionals and students, because you are really close to the North Carolina State University, and you're right across from golf course and all the green stuff we started off with in the video. So pretty cool neighborhood back in there. Some of the neighborhoods in here are on the older side. So if we hop into Carolina Pines, we're seeing more like mobile homes, single family ranches, definitely your older 50s, 60s homes, and then you'll see random quadplexes and that kind of stuff. So definitely more of your infill housing or your starter homes on this east side here. You do have your Sam's Club and some kind of random businesses off of here, but there's not a ton going on. As we get down close to Garner, like this area down here is considered Garner, and you do get Walmart and Lowe's and some kind of stuff like that. If we pop into the east side over here, we go into like Kingwood Forest, for example. If we go and pop into the east side of kind of the south part of Raleigh, let's say Kingwood Forest, for example, get rid of that. Then this is, I mean, it's gonna be kind of more the same. It's gonna be more your starter homes, your single family, definitely older. The trick is going to be finding a home that is in good shape or something, you know, that you're willing to fix up. But again, you're not going to see as many large families moving into this area, and so a lot of the single family homes are going to be your basic needs work, 1,100 square foot type housing. It's not until we really get into like Southeast Raleigh that we start to see larger houses and newer houses. And so yes, you can find a house in here in the 2s and in the 3s, and that looks great on paper, but you know, a lot of times the homes that are going to hold the best values and grow the most, and homes that you can grow into too, are going to be more on the southeast side or over here near Camden Crossing, which we already kind of looked at. And this area also is going to start to blend into Garner. And so, you know, there's not a huge transition line. You just kind of naturally find yourself transitioning into Garner, and it's going to feel less like an extension of downtown Raleigh and more like an extension of Garner. Not a bad thing, not a good thing, just, you know, something that I'm pointing out. Now, if we look at unincorporated Raleigh, because let me pull back up Raleigh city limits here real quick. Look, it stops right after all that housing. So Raleigh is actually very north heavy. There's not a huge South Raleigh like there is in North Raleigh, which is why, you know, when we're making videos, we're mainly talking about North Raleigh when we say Raleigh. We're not usually talking about this section down here. However, we have highlighted some communities that are in unincorporated South Raleigh where you save on taxes, you get new construction, and a lot of land. And there is a lot of land in unincorporated Raleigh, so I definitely want to touch on it. Not only are you right next door to Cary, Apex, Holly Springs, which are some really nice suburbs here, very in demand in our market, but you still have quick access to downtown. You're further from like Research Triangle Park up here in the airport, so that's why most people don't move here, because it's the most isolated and there's no shopping, right? There's no development. But it's the same thing as Northeast Raleigh. If you want a lot of land in a new house, then you might find yourself out in one of these random neighborhoods, because I mean, they're still very nice. You can still get nice wooded lot, you can get acreage, you can build brand new for relatively affordable. You know, really whatever you're trying to do, you can do out here in unincorporated, and then you can save on property taxes and on your land and everything else. And you don't have to worry about HOAs telling you what to do. Most of these neighborhoods are not gonna have HOAs. Some of them will, but you can really kind of do whatever you want out here. And that's one reason why people are moving out to here. Some of this land can't be developed on, like you do have the county park in here, you have like rivers running through here and preserves, so not all of this can be developed, which is why this is a slower moving part of our market. But again, having quick access to Cary and Apex is really huge because there's infinite shopping, dining, and all sorts of sprawl happening over there, and it does get you, you know, a little bit closer to kind of that entertainment district. You can come up to the airport from the south side. So being over on this southwest portion might end up being very beneficial, especially if we do start to see more development happening over here as Apex and Cary continue to get more and more crowded, which is an ongoing issue. Now let's talk about the entertainment hub over here on the west side of Raleigh. This is after you get past North Carolina State University and before you hit Cary. Mainly you have two sections to this. The south section is actually going to be your resale properties. This is going to be your single family, your townhomes, and you're gonna have some tear down new constructions happening in here as well. Just to show you what some of these neighborhoods looks like, as we get in here, we see decent lot sizes, pretty basic ranch homes, but you can tell that these neighborhoods, you know, back in the day, they were kind of a little bit more like North Hills surrounding real estate, for example. Now, this didn't get near as much, you know, love and attention as North Hills did. So most of these properties were left, you know, outdated. They have not been painted over or, you know, built new construction on top of them, nothing like that. However, people still do like these neighborhoods because they can get a home in the 4s or in the upper 3s, you know, as a starter home, and then they can still live close to NC State. They can live close to some of the entertainment stuff that we're about to talk about. So there is a specific type of person who definitely, you know, would benefit living over in this portion. And this street view we're looking at is a really great example of kind of what the neighborhoods here are gonna look like. So nothing very fancy or sexy, but there's a good amount of real estate in there. Now this north side is what's pretty cool. There's a lot going on. The main thing is you have the Carter Finley Stadium. This is where NC State puts on a lot of their games. You have the Lenovo Center, which is home to the Hurricanes. This is our NHL team. We're huge, huge, huge on hockey. You're gonna see you know, the Hurricane signs everywhere you go here in Raleigh. We don't have, you know, NBA or NFL or anything here in the Triangle. We have college sports and we have NHL, so we take it very, very seriously. We also have, you know, a little bit of the North NC State campuses going on over here, the club. So some of this is actually owned by them. They got practice facilities. But then we have NC's largest flea market, which is pretty cool to say. We have the State Farmers Market. We have the largest flea market. We have random restaurants and bars. We have a giant drive shack over on the west side here. We've got gyms. We've got, you know, little cafes. We've got parks. So there's a lot of really cool entertainment stuff happening in here. It's not just NHL teams at the Lenovo, by the way. We got a lot of concerts that are hosted in here as well, basketball games. So it really is a whole entertainment venue, and they just invested billions and billions and billions of dollars to turn the surrounding area into a huge, huge entertainment hub. So there's gonna be a lot more development happening in the surrounding in terms of having retail, shopping, dining, other forms of entertainment. So, I mean, this is going to completely transform over the next 5-10 years. And I'm very excited about that. And that does kind of blend over up into here. We kind of talked about that earlier. So you do have the Museum of Art. You have this huge, look at all the trails in there. This huge area here for outdoor recreation, quick access to Memorial Forest, and by then you're back up in Northwest Raleigh. So now we have covered a large chunk of Raleigh. We've covered south, southeast, east, northeast, north. We've covered west, inside the Beltline, west. All right, so let's take another breath. We have just covered a lot in this video, and we still have more to see. We have the north side up here past 540, and this section over here, which happens to be one of the top areas in Raleigh. Before we get to that, if you are thinking about making a move here, just as a friendly reminder, please call or text the number at the bottom of the screen or click the link in the description. I would love to set up a time to chat with you about what it would look like to make a smooth move to the Raleigh area. Let's start with north of 540. We left this for later. It's its own section. And the reason for that is because it does not fall under Incorporated Raleigh. So this section over here will, but everything that's between Falls Lake and what we've already covered, this is not gonna have city taxes. So you do get some savings there, but people don't move here for the savings. As you can see, there's a lot of green space here. Why is there a lot of green space? Because the land's really expensive, and the main part of that is because a lot of this is on a watershed table underground because of Falls Lake. So there's so many rules around, you know, what you can build and how much. So because of that, a lot of these houses have to be built on large lots. So if you love the idea of an acre lot, multi-acre lot, quarter, minimum acre lot, but usually half acre lot is kind of the standard. Almost all these neighborhoods have that. And so because of that, the land's very expensive because you only can build X amount of homes, which is way less homes than you'll see in North Raleigh, for example. So lower density, but still very desirable. And the reason people love living up in North Raleigh is, well, you're still close to Research Triangle Park and to the airport. You have quick access onto 540. You also have quick access to the lake, which is just super awesome to be able to, go up into that or maybe even be backing up against it like some of these neighborhoods do. And there's a big appeal to having a lot of land, and so people fight over it. So some of the most competitive real estate is actually up in all these neighborhoods. And I can't, again, go through every single neighborhood here, but there are so many. If we take Trotter's Ridge, for example, one of just the many neighborhoods that's in here, that is exactly what we're gonna find. We're gonna find gorgeous roads that take you by homes that have large half-acre to acre lots. And again, the homes aren't anything crazy. These aren't like luxury new construction, but they're nice. They're well taken care of, they're well loved. And again, the people who buy these homes, they are staying in these homes for, a long time. Very, very low turnover in these neighborhoods. And when they do go up for sale, man, they go really, really quickly. And so you're gonna see rolling hills, you're gonna see gorgeous neighborhoods. You're not gonna see any shopping in development. Very, very few businesses, gas stations, anything on this north side. You are commuting down into North Raleigh or over into here if you need pretty much anything. But you get the feeling of being isolated and having a bunch of space and land and all that kind of fun stuff, but you still are actually very, very much a part of the triangle, which is why this section is always going to be in demand. So a lot of the neighborhoods look like that. Some are a little more expensive, like we were in Trotter's Ridge where homes are 6, 7s, maybe 8s. If we go into kind of this west side, you get a little bit of price relief because they're not as established. If we go into Arbuton Grove, for example, the homes got a lot closer together. So this is one of the few neighborhoods on that north side that, you're still getting a quarter acre lot, which is nice, but it's nothing like Trotter's Ridge. So even though, you're part of a good school district and, you're actually much closer to the airport and to RTP, these homes are only gonna go in the 4s, 5s, and 6s, for example, because you're losing out on that land, which that land is still very valuable. But over here they were able to build higher density, and so they definitely did. But you get a little bit newer product. These homes were definitely built in the 90s, which is nice. That one, unfortunately, is going to be a tear down. That'll be interesting. But these homes are definitely newer. Now, people's preference, for the most part, are still going to be the slightly older houses with a bunch of land, and that's why these get so much higher prices. That 50 road here, which takes you all the way from Crabtree Valley all the way up to the lake, that is the only main road that goes straight up to the lake down to North Raleigh. And that is like, if you're close to that road in any of these neighborhoods, you're gonna be taking that every single day, and thankfully the traffic on it isn't that bad. Otherwise, you're taking a bunch of back roads, and that's gonna be part of your daily commute, whether you are actively employed or even if you're retired and that's your daily commute to go visit the kids or go do whatever you're gonna do in your day. And then once you get into a lot of the neighborhoods that are surrounding Falls Lake, getting really close to it, as you can imagine, these properties are going to be the most valuable for the most part. So we're actually seeing the most amount of new construction, and even the ones that aren't new construction are still getting really good prices. But if we were to pop our guy down into, let's say, the point at Falls Lake, you already know just based on the description, it's gonna be very nice. It's very wooded, very dense, lots of lots just like we've been seeing. And this specific neighborhood actually isn't new construction, it's actually resale. These houses are older, established, but they're still very nice. They've got the long driveways, and they're just as close as you can pretty much get to Falls Lake, which is pretty cool. Just look at kind of this entrance into the community. Very nice. Most of these neighborhoods are going to be starting in the 800s and go up from there. It of course depends on the lot size that you get, and some of these are going to be new construction, like that one back in there. Maybe not brand new construction, but built pretty recently. all of them, again, are just gonna have really great lot sizes, and they're not gonna be cookie cutter, which is one thing that I know a lot of people really care about, including myself, is, you know, having something that's very unique and not like everything else, and not being able to see your neighbor. But then we do have a fair mix of new construction communities too, especially once you get to the north side of Falls Lake, which once you get up here, most of that is gonna fall under Wake Forest. For example, Hazen Tree is one of the top luxury new construction communities here in Wake Forest. It's very, very close to Raleigh, but it's not in Raleigh. But there's a lot of smaller communities too off of Durham Road, which takes you all the way from Wake Forest into Durham, and a lot of these do fall kind of within Raleigh, like Falls Run, Old Farm Crossing. As you're going off of Durham Road, you might see something, you know, some random small community, like for example, Remington Forest. And you know, as you're driving by, if we pop our guy down into there, we don't even have street view inside of some of these neighborhoods. Can't get inside of there, but I happen to know that back in there's a lot of like luxury new construction, not all of it, but it's a good mix. You'll see you know, some older resales, and then you'll see brand new construction back in there where there's still land to be built. Now, one thing that you'll find when you're driving on Durham Road is some parts are really nice, and then some parts are just kind of like driving through anywhere else, like Northeast Raleigh or Southwest Raleigh. So, you know, it's really a mixed bag up here, and that's kind of what happens when you do buy with land. Now, if you're looking for brand new construction neighborhoods, there's not a lot of like master plan new construction neighborhoods happening up here. What you will find is as you're going throughout some of these neighborhoods, some of them will have extra lots, or yes, some tear downs that have been built up with new construction. You'll find little pockets throughout here that are connected to established neighborhoods. That's more the trend. Now, if you get up to this 98, which brings you from Wake Forest into Durham, this road, this main road, it is going to have a lot of micro developments off of it, and that's one of your best chances for finding luxury new construction little micro developments, especially as we get closer to Wake Forest. For example, Hazen Tree, which is part of Wake Forest, but I figured I'd bring it up for this example, is a top new construction luxury built by Toll Brothers. So all within the last few years, they built a bunch of brand new construction with large lots up by Falls Lake. Pretty cool, a lot of different real estate out in here, lots of great amenities too here in Hazen Tree. And you may be looking at this and thinking, hey, I like the culture of the more established neighborhoods that we've been looking at. And I'd say, yeah, I actually probably agree with you. So, you know, if you need new construction, then you can get it in Hazen Tree or similar, but it's not gonna be necessarily what everyone wants. Not everyone wants to pay $1.5 million. The other new construction that tends to pop up in here, they'll be again in little micro pockets where, you know, the real estate's really cool, but we're talking several $1 million for some of these properties. Again, off of here, you're gonna find a lot of little veins that are near the lake that have the luxury new construction. Some of them are gonna be on the Raleigh side, some of them are gonna be on the Wake Forest side. And anything further north than here where we've been looking, you're now getting into some of these smaller, you know, micro cities outside of Raleigh. You're now getting pretty far out of the RTP and the airport and all that kind of stuff. You know, you can keep going further north and you'll get cheaper and cheaper, but you'll get further away from everything else. So, you know, it's all a balancing act at the end of the day. All right, we have covered so much in this video. We have one more portion of Raleigh left to cover, and then you can pretty much consider yourself an expert, a master on the geography behind Raleigh, and hopefully you're walking away from this video with so much more information than you came into it. The last thing you need to do is, once again, call the number at the bottom of the screen or click the link in the description, because I want to actually help you breathe life into everything that we've covered in this video, so again, you can make the right decision for your specific circumstance. The last segment that we need to look at is called Brier Creek. You might have heard of this. This is definitely repeatedly on lists for the top place in Raleigh to move to. Again, other than just being right next to the airport and Research Triangle Park, which might be more than reason enough for you to want to move there, you also have a lot of things going for you. For example, you're still in Wake County, you got great schools. A lot of the schools up here, I happen to know, are highly rated, and on top of that, a lot of them are year-round, which is pretty cool. So you have some different options as far as schools go. And it's home to Brier Creek Shopping Center. So this whole thing here, Brier Creek Commons, it's infinite, it's sprawling. It's one of the largest shopping centers and probably one of the nicest, I'd say, as far as just literally everything you need is here. Target, restaurants, movie theaters, you have a whole medical field over here, cafes. If you're visiting into town from the airport, of course, there's a bunch of like nice hotels that they've built in here. But then they're gonna have, you know, TJ Maxx, and they're gonna have Michael's and Dick's Sporting Goods. And I mean, I could just list everything in here. You can also see it for yourself. It continues past Glenwood, which is that Highway 70 that we looked at earlier in the video. Continues over here where we have Walmart and Planet Fitness and Panera Bread's in here, and Cold Stone Creamery and Pho and Cinnaholic and Starbucks, and you know, literally anything and everything you can think of. As you go to kind of this far end here, we have more like smaller medical stuff, dentistries, you know, primary cares, that sort of stuff. And regardless of where you live in the triangle, you're probably gonna find yourself in here, you know, at least a few times a month. But if you live in some of the surrounding real estate here in Brier Creek, you're gonna find yourself in here every single day, and it's super, super convenient. So you could actually shop, you could fly in and out, you could go to work, and you could even play around in here, because Brier Creek is home to the Brier Creek Country Club. So we've got gorgeous, picturesque golf courses. We've got lots of good amenities, pickleball, tennis, pool. I mean, everything you'd expect from a country club. And so you've got single family houses with large lots, of course, estates. You've got townhomes and even apartments and condos all within this section. They all get to use the amazing shopping, the amazing amenities, and then again, the location is just what really sells it. So I'll pop you into here. We also covered this in that same North Raleigh top 5 areas video, so you should definitely check that out. We've pointed out quite a bit of what was in that video today. But this is just gonna show you, you know, some of the townhomes that are available. If we keep scrolling around here, we'll start to see some of the single families that are in the area, and these are just kind of the base single families. These aren't the estates packages with super large lots and $1 million price points because they're new construction. These are homes that sell in the 6s and 7s, which is still steep, don't get me wrong, but you're getting a lot of space, a lot of house, and again, you're really paying for the location and the amenities by living in here. And they're nice houses. I mean, there's definitely nothing wrong with them other than being a little bit cookie cutter, you know, some people would say, for sure. But some of these are 3 stories tall, which means you're getting a lot of square foot in there. If you want to be like right off of the golf course and have quick access, you definitely can. And we're going to take a look at some of the surrounding real estate to kind of show you what is being offered that's quick to the golf course. So you're gonna already notice that these houses are, you know, more spread apart. It's not like they're getting an acreage or anything crazy like that. But some of these, especially the corner lots, they really do have really large yards. You know, they're just very expansive properties, and they're just overall pretty nice. Again, nothing crazy. It's not like what we've seen in, you know, North Raleigh, north of 540. It's obviously not going to be like what we just looked at, where you can get an acreage and you're close to the lake. But this one, you have a different type of nature, a different type of lifestyle. This is almost a good hybrid where you might want a lot of house, you might want a good amount of land, but you still want to be in the heart of Raleigh. And you cannot get more in the heart of Raleigh than Brier Creek. I mean, literally, no matter where you want to go, it's 30 minutes or less. It's as central as it gets, and you might be thinking, hey Ben, isn't there a lot of air traffic coming off of the airport? Not a lot. In fact, the contour lines for the airport noise actually go like this and this because of the way that the runway is lined up. So you're as close as you can get to the airport without actually being in a flight path, because no one is gonna be able to fly above you because of those runways, and you're not getting most of the noise. It is as convenient as it gets being in Brier Creek. You have luxury, but you also have surrounding real estate that isn't that bad, because if you head over to the other side of Brier Creek, a lot of the houses in here are still pretty great, and they don't have the same amenities. But I mean, look, they're nice houses. Some of these are really new, actually, built in the last 10, 15 years max. And the best part is, you know, they're only selling in the 5s, for example. So you're getting almost a $200,000 discount by being, you know, just across the street. And look at these nice homes. They'd be good for retirees. They'd be good for starter homes for people who are going to work in RTP. And that, my friends, is the entire map tour of Raleigh. We have covered so much in today's video. If you have questions, drop them into the comments down below and I will give you as detailed as a response as I can. And if you want to see a map tour where I covered every part of the triangle, all the different suburbs that makes up Raleigh-Durham Chapel Hill, then make sure you click this video next. I'm Benjamin, and I'll see you there.